People who grew up as the black sheep of the family, how's life like now? It's always been obvious that my parents never loved me, but it wasn't until last week, when I turned 16, that I finally got some hardcore evidence. It started off with business as usual, zero celebration, zero cake. But then, they actually surprised me with a gift, except it wasn't for me, it was for them. They kicked me out of the house. The reason? My older sister Natalie. She's basically their golden child, and always has been. They've never said why, but I'm socially awkward and never had a girlfriend. Meanwhile, she was the it girl back in high school. But now she's 8 months pregnant, and on my birthday morning my parents woke me up and told me to start packing. You see, we have 4 bedrooms, and they wanted one for the newborn, one for my sister, and one for her boyfriend, at my expense of course. So I was being booted to my uncle's house. I didn't even react, and after a few minutes of silence they promised to cover all my expenses until I turned 18, as long as it wasn't under their roof anymore. Natalie wasn't even home during this conversation, and I immediately knew that was intentional, so she wouldn't have to witness this train wreck and feel guilty. I thought we had a civil relationship, but at that moment, I knew my family never actually cared about me, and she was no exception. And like any 16-year-old boy being told they're getting kicked out on their birthday, I felt crushed. But I knew nothing I could possibly say would make them actually love me, and that's why I spent my 16th birthday stuffing all my belongings into trash bags. They helped me pack, but honestly, I think they were just speeding up my exit. Once finished, they even drove me to my uncle's place and chatted happily the entire trip. At one point, my mom turned to my dad with a huge smile plastered on her face. "Hey, now that OP's gone, we can finally order some Indian food." When we arrived, I expected some sort of goodbye hug, or even a good luck. But instead, they pulled into the sidewalk and drove off before I even made it to the front door. And when my uncle opened the door, I felt even worse, because he wrapped his arms around me and warmly welcomed me in. I broke down crying, because the whole thing made me realize how terrible my parents actually are. I ended up opening up to him, and he seemed completely shocked by what I said, and asked me to repeat everything. So I recounted the morning's events, and his friendly smile instantly transformed into an angry scowl. Without saying anything, he grabbed his phone, mentioned needing to make a call, and disappeared into another room. Suddenly, my uncle's voice erupted through the walls. This was completely out of character since he rarely raises his voice at anyone. He's generally super chill and soft-spoken. I immediately knew someone had seriously pissed him off for him to react this intensely. When he returned, his face was bright red with anger, and I discovered my parents were the source of his fury. Turns out, my dad, his brother, had told him that I'd actually proposed this living arrangement myself, and I was totally cool with moving out of my childhood home to live with him instead. This explained why my uncle had agreed to take me in, since he thought it was my idea. After that call, he grabbed me a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. He told me he was sorry for not doing something sooner. He said my parents are the adults in the situation, and my safety and happiness should have always been their priority. I felt myself choke up and sniffle to hold back tears when he said that. They were the words I've been longing to hear ever since I was 6, and my parents told me I was worthless for the first time, but his reassurance wasn't enough for me. My parents had literally chosen to give their guest room to Natalie's boyfriend, who's like 24 with a steady job and an apartment lease. So I decided to expose my parents online and let the internet deal with them. I wasn't sure if my uncle would approve, so I waited until he went for his afternoon nap and posted what had happened without hesitation. I included everything: the favoritism, the insults, and of course, the borderline abandonment. By the time I hit post, tears were streaming down my face. I immediately turned my phone off because I was terrified of the consequences. And when I turned on my phone an hour later, I finally learned why people always say, "Be careful what you post online," because it went viral, but to all the wrong people. I can't tell you what happened next in this video. The full story is on my channel.